So, welcome everybody. This is Borderline Talk with Jim Budd, and today again I have Lisa is with me. Lisa Gonzalez, who writes a wonderful Substack. You want to tell us your name of your Substack and everything?
Yeah, thanks, Jen. The name of my Substack is Eleanor's Squad. It was named in honor of Eleanor Roosevelt, who is a personal heroine of mine. She is champion of civil rights and human rights, and in the midst of everything that we have experienced, I've spent an awful lot of time reflecting on her words, which thankfully she left us a lot of them because we are experiencing a lot of the same stuff all over again.
Yeah, exactly. I asked Lisa to jump on this live with me this morning. I mean, you and I should schedule a weekly thing where we
We
talk.
should, we should.
We
Yeah.
should. Maybe we'll talk about that uh, this
Even
week
if it's
after
not
we get off
online,
work.
I just want to talk to you for moral support.
I have a lot of female friends that are like that work in this industry. They're like, "I need to talk to you."
Yeah, I'll bet.
Have to support each other, and sometimes I go that route too, and need help myself. But this morning, so I was telling Lisa that yesterday, Francesca Fiorini, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, she had mentioned that Democrats are not coming out against ICE and against what's happening, and this is part of the problem. And I had said, I replied to her Obama in 2014 had ordered Border Patrol to use Child Protective Services to remove newborn babies from their asylum-seeking mothers in the hospital. And then I had to correct that. It was a mistake on my part. I actually reread the article because I realized, I need to give proof of this. So I had left the thing up, and then people started to talk at me that I needed sources, which is actually what I was doing at the time. I didn't want to erase it because Francesca had already re put it out on Substack, and so I was going to go back and edit it because thankfully we could edit things, but people grabbed a hold of it, and a lot of them were what I call blue anons, or they're also known as blue dog Democrats. Um, eh, eh, Blue dog Democrats tend to be very hot,
I didn't
pro
know that.
border enforcement. Yeah, that's what they're called in politics.
Okay.
And so those are Democrats like your Henry Cuellars and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And they tend to vote a lot with the Republicans, at least on immigration and stuff.
Okay.
And then the Blue Anons, this specific woman who came after me, she asked for sources, and I said, "Yeah, I got them up. Here they are. Here's the thing." And then she said, "Did you not see the date on that?" And the article was written in 2020. She's like, "Obama wasn't president." And I said, "Did you read the fucking article?" And now, I mean, I understand how you threw an F bomb at her and this and that. That's just the way I speak and so forth. I am a former Border Patrol agent.
It's
So
okay with me, Jen. I say, I've heard plenty of quotes that they say people who swear are more honest, and I believe
yeah.
that to be true.
So and then I, clipped the part. It's on the very last page. It's like a 5-page article. I knew it was true because I helped Wendy Fry, the journalist, uh, research that and talked about it with her. So I knew she did her research, and I know Wendy Fry,
Okay.
but I was involved with it when she was doing it, and we were just talking about it, and it's all her word, but I was just talking about what it meant, and honestly, we were both devastated by it, to be truthful, and um, but then this woman just kept attacking me and said she didn't believe it. She thought it was fake. And I'm like, you just are refusing to believe that the Democrats are just as ruthless as the Republicans. They just don't brag about it. And so I wanted to talk to Lisa a little bit more about that. I was just on the Wajahat Ali
Yep.
show, the left hand hook or the left hook. And we mentioned this briefly, but I wanted to get more in depth about it. So I would say that my understanding of Democrats on the border. So let's talk about Clinton. Let's talk about Obama. Let's talk about Biden. Just in a general, off the top of my head, and then I'll have you come in, Lisa. Is so I was hired under Bill Clinton,
Hmm.
and he adopted what's called deterrence policies. That was originally a policy of the Republicans out of the Heritage Foundation.
Can you say
And
that what was it called one more time? Because I wanna write that down, actually. Well, I don't have my
okay.
pen, so I won't be.
Okay, well, we'll put this out
Yeah.
on your Substack and
Yeah, yeah,
mine, a
no, I got
recording.
it. Yeah,
So, deterrence policies.
deterrence policies, okay.
Yeah, that's to deter people
Yep,
from crossing illegally.
I didn't know.
Now, this was also during the crime bill. In fact, when I was hired by the Border Patrol, my pay came out of the crime bill appropriations.
Okay.
And the Democrats at that time, it's well known, were trying to lean into tough on crime, tough on the border. And so they adopted deterrence policies, which was originally designed by the Department of Defense, which should scare the shit out of you
Mhm.
because immigration is civilian policing, so they shouldn't be adopting military policies, but the Border Patrol did. And essentially what it did was it the idea was to build walls, bring in more agents, which is why I was hired,
Mhm.
surge the amount of agents, more guns, more cameras, more this and that, to keep them out of the cities and then push them into, if you're in San Diego, the mountains where I worked, where it snows, and then it gets hot as hell during the summertime as well. A lot of people die because of that lack of water and so forth, and heat stroke. And then the deserts of El Centro, and the deserts of Arizona and New Mexico, and then Texas and the Rio Grande, where a lot of people have died. Those deterrence policies, since they were instituted in October of 1994 by the Bill Clinton administration, have killed at a minimum 80,000 people. And no, they were not all criminals. And shut the fuck up if you tell me that people that cross a border are felony criminals. They are not.
It is a
It is a
civil how
misdemeanor.
many more times that we can say this, Jen? I'm gonna
Yeah.
scream from the rooftops. It is a civil offense. It is not a
Right.
criminal offense. It has never been established as a criminal offense ever when until this administration, but that doesn't mean the law changed. That's the part
Well,
that kills me, right? Like,
I'm
they
gonna correct you on that. It was actually after 9/11, the George W. Bush administration started. They made it so that you could charge somebody with what's called 8 USC 1325, which is illegal entry without inspection. We called it EWI in the Border Patrol. And in my day, I've never charged somebody with 1325 unless they were also smuggling drugs or something else. They had to commit another felony to get charged with that.
so
We
that was
just,
a standard that in order for them to be charged with that okay, because I
yeah.
have experts always say, all these attorneys say that's not a criminal offense. I mean, I'm not just pulling that out of thin air. These
Hmm.
are from expert attorneys that all said that. So you're telling me there is a way to charge them for that, but it would be invoked with a separate charge, maybe
A
for
separate charge,
yeah,
or if you could identify somebody who was a smuggler, and those are people
right,
that once we got computers, so when I got in the Border Patrol and when I got to my station in November of 1995, some stations, like down in the cities and stuff, did have what they call ident in the computers, so we could start tracking people by their index fingerprint only, and we could see how many times they crossed. But at my station in Campo, which was just a bunch of trailers out in the middle of nowhere,
right,
we didn't have computers when I first got there. We
right.
did about a year afterwards, and I taught ident and all that, and I was an instructor in casework and everything. And what that allowed us to do was then say, "Oh shit, Lisa's crossed like 30 times in the last 3 months. She might be a smuggler." So
Just
then
so
you
we
would,
all know, Lisa is actually legal. I would just like to say that.
yeah.
I
I'm just
just
using you as an example.
I no. You know why? Because do you know how since so I have it must be on the I am a blip on some people's screens that are on the far right because I've gotten some pretty significant lovely messages.
Oh, I
Oh,
apologize for
oh,
that. And you
oh,
all are also a Latina,
I am.
technically.
That's
So
why, because
yeah,
my
yeah,
last name is Gonzalez, and I mentioned that in jest because a few people have told me to go back to Mexico,
yeah.
which,
Well,
by the
I
way,
will say, like in the ident system, my picture in uniform and my fingerprints are actually in there because I was teaching it to people and I showed them.
okay,
See, so now you can see my picture in there and this and that.
okay,
So, So essentially, the let's go back to Bill Clinton. And so
Difference.
essentially, what that did was it pushed people out to the most dangerous places to cross intentionally. That
Mm,
was what INS, which is Immigration Naturalization Service, that was what Border Patrol was under before 9/11. And so they said this is going to make it hard for them. They must suffer emotionally, they must suffer physically, they must suffer mentally so that they will
they
go
told
back.
you this? They told you they wanted them to suffer emotionally,
Absolutely.
mentally.
Absolutely. It says it in the documents that it must be so traumatic for them. Not
Oh
in
my
these words, but
goodness.
essentially it must be so traumatic for them that they will tell other people not to cross and they will themselves not try and cross illegally again. Now, as a young agent, I was being told there are legal ways to do it, like they've always said, and these people just won't do it. And so at the time when I first got in, like I said, we didn't have computers, so I didn't know the people standing in front of me if they were criminals or not, or had prior criminal records. And the only way I could tell is if old school, I rolled their fingerprints and then put it through a fax machine and waited for a couple of hours. And you cannot do that with everybody. There at the time, I've arrested average groups were 20 to 30 by myself, 3 to 4 times a night. I'm arresting that many people.
Wow.
My biggest group arrested by myself was over 100 people, you
Oh
know,
my goodness.
and they don't fight you because they know that behind me are other agents. I could just call on the radio and this and that, and they don't fight me because the majority of them are not criminals. They're either seeking work or they're seeking safety.
Right, right.
Yeah, so, and I'm only 5'6". I was a skinny little thing back then. They used to call me güerita, which is like little white woman, basically,
Mhm.
is what it means, 'cause I was so much smaller than they were. And and essentially, we wanted them to suffer. Also, you need to know that the Border Patrol, we've been finding dead bodies long before this, so we knew that that was going to kill a lot of people. I think us as young people didn't know that, but at the same time, what the administration didn't tell us is that they were systematically, slowly closing the legal avenues with which people could apply, whether for
Right.
work permits or whether for asylum or refugee status or all these other things, which is a completely different thing. But essentially, they're closing the majority. And the other thing that the Clinton immigration bills did is in the past, ICE was done by former Border Patrol agents who went into INS criminal investigations. That's what ICE was beforehand. And they were usually old Border Patrol agents who wanted to get off the border and didn't want to work in the field anymore in the mountains and the deserts and stuff like that. And essentially in the past, if you were convicted of murder or you were convicted of drug smuggling or rape, very serious violent crimes, they could legally deport you. That was what their job was. Um, but what the Clintons did is they lowered that standard, and then pretty much most every president since then keeps lowering it to the point now where you can get deported if you didn't pay for a fishing permit.
Right.
Okay. It's
Yes.
just and 20 years ago, you didn't pay for a fishing permit, kinda
Right.
thing. So
Right.
they're making it they're even though they're telling Americans and they're telling us as agents, there's legal ways for them to do it. They just don't wanna do it. They're just criminals, this and that. They're actually doing
Yeah.
this. And they're
So
creating more undocumented people by taking legal people here and applying new standards to them. Okay?
I know personally, I have an exchange student. So I've housed over the course of my children, growing up, we have had 6 different exchange students that have come that have lived with us. A couple from China, one was from Germany who was actually Muslim. Nobody even told me about that. I didn't find out until he arrived. Poor kid. I met his poor mother with wine and pork. With for I didn't know. They didn't tell
No,
me.
no, you didn't know. I know you
Yeah, I
didn't.
didn't know, but anyway, at any rate, one of my son's best friends is from actually from Spain. He lived with us for a year, came to the United States to go to school at a college in Chicago. He just received his master's degree and got the hell out, even though he had a work permit for a couple of years. And in the last year, two of his friends were deported for traffic tickets. Now imagine that, traffic tickets. They got a speeding ticket, friends. That was their crime. And they were instructed that they were going to be deported, and they left. They were in the middle of their degrees of their program that their families and they paid for and worked their tails off for, and they had to leave. So
Yeah.
that really is happening to people. That's not a lie.
I think a good comparison would be to think about who the Border Patrol, CBP, and ICE hire. You can become an agent within these agencies. You can become a federal agent if you have a DUI or prior DUI. You can even become a federal agent if you have a prior sex abuse arrest, like,
Wait a minute.
you know.
Can you just say that? I just want to, I might need a minute to process that. As a
You can
female,
apply right now and become an ICE, Border Patrol, or CBP agent with a DUI in your background. But
but the
you have
sex
a
offender
DUI
part?
in your back, and even a offense, you can. The chaplain of the Tucson
Wow.
Border Patrol sector was a Border Patrol agent for nearly 20 years before he got busted for pedophilia. And
Oh,
not just looking at it, but producing it. And then when he was busted, his adult daughter said, "Oh yeah, he raped us
oh
our
my
whole
God.
lives." And then when he was sentenced in 2021, then I think it was 2021. His name's Dana R. Thornhill. You can look him up.
Oh God. Didn't either.
He ended up, it turns out he, sexually abused a little girl when he was 14 years old, and they
Oh,
hired a MFer. So imagine just how many children, unaccompanied children, this man was
want
abusing.
to. I really
So
just want to. I'm so sad about
they're
this.
deporting people for crimes that they hire agents for, okay?
Exactly. Less
Yeah,
than they're deported by exchange. Our like my third son, they deported his friends for a speeding ticket, and you're telling me
exactly.
they're hiring people with DUIs and
Oh,
also
yeah.
sex offenders.
They
Yeah,
had after 9/11, they had such a push like we're pushing right now. They literally hired cartel members. The cartel started pushing people through, and I would imagine the cartel's pushing people through right now.
Jen, someone
Um,
said on the comment on
yeah,
X, there's a video circulating of current ICE agent taking a woman into a porta potty.
I saw that.
I
She's
did
I
not.
wanna say she's handcuffed. He took her into a porta
Oh
potty.
my God.
Uh-huh. If you don't I said when this started, I said, "There's no such thing as a mass deportation without sexual abuse, pedophilia, um, violence, beating the shit out of them. There's gonna be lots of deaths. There's gonna be children dying in custody. I wouldn't be surprised if children haven't died already in custody. ICE has more children in custody right now than they ever have had. And when this administration started, they were supposed to be looking into the sexual assault allegations within children in custody, and they said, "We're not gonna do it," and they just walked away from it. They
Oh my
closed the
God.
case. And so so when we leave Bill Clinton, I'm still an agent. I remember George W. Bush came into office, and that's when the Border Patrol started having chaplains. We don't have rabbis and we don't have imams. We have chaplains. Let that sink in. And then after 9/11, the agencies, as they are created, ICE is the ones that get the people with criminal backgrounds all over the United States.
Right.
Border Patrol is those of us in green in between the ports of entry trying to catch people and goods coming across without inspection. And then CBP, Customs and Border Protection, which is the parent agency to Border Patrol. So you'll sometimes see them call them CBP because Border
Mhm.
Patrol is kind of within CBP, but they are separate agencies. CBP is at the ports. They're like what we think of the customs guys in blue. Okay. So after that, George Bush gets in and they start really heavily focusing on hiring people who have certain backgrounds, like they're fundamentalist Christians, they're
Right.
right wingers, and they start. So I think somebody like me probably couldn't get in after that. And so they've really been like trying to push out the people who they don't agree with, who are liberals and so forth, or
God
Democrats.
forbid.
Yeah, God forbid.
Right.
And so then we come to Obama. Now, I like a lot of what President Obama did. I think he was a great president. But
Mhm.
when it comes to immigration, like I said, the Democrats are just as brutal. They just don't
Yep.
brag about it. So Obama was known as the deporter in chief. Up until now, he deported more people than anybody else. And continue to limit the legal avenues with which migrants could enter the United States and be inspected, because that's what we want,
I
right?
have a
We want to
question about
inspect
that.
people coming in.
I
Go
have a
ahead.
question just to ask you what your opinion is. Not that you know, it's not like you were like, having lunch on the White House lawn with Obama to ask because I liked him as well, but knowing those things and hearing those things because that's really I hear that all the time from people on the right about immigration, right? Do you know they'll say they'll have pictures. Do you know who started this? Do you know who do you know who made this worse? Do you know who and
Well, he didn't start it. I would say during the Obama years, they had, at least his last term, had the least crossings that we had seen in decades, since the
right,
'70s.
right.
And
But do
Trump
you think
inherited that, and then created, and we'll get to that. But
I
so,
can't wait. But do you
oh,
think that he did that to do you have any theory on why you think maybe Obama did that?
yes, because they don't listen to anybody except CBP, Border Patrol, and ICE. And
Okay,
so when these agencies tell them that, because of 9/11, and I wanna say, so let's remember that INS, which was Border Patrol and inspections and all that, they're the ones that let in the terrorists with, they didn't have fake documents, but they had fraudulent information on the documents.
okay,
And so their inspection of those terrorists was poor from the beginning. And then let's remember that after 9/11 happened, 1 year after the date, INS sent all of the terrorists who were dead renewal visas. That's how bad the department was. And so what you have after 9/11 is you have these immigration agencies that are now called ICBP, and Border Patrol stayed the same, saying, "We have to protect you, give us more money, give us more agents, give us more this, give us more that." And yet no accountability for what happened at 9/11.
of
Nobody
course
was
not.
held accountable, okay? Nobody, at least within law enforcement, kinda like January 6th. Nobody's gonna be held accountable for that. So then they use these agencies, the heads of these agencies, one of which was Rodney Scott, who's the current commissioner of CBP, to then develop CBP and Border Patrol to this new system, and ICE, and then they created the oversight agencies, and they filled them with their own agents.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, and then, and I will say, during the Obama administration, in his last term, even though he had extremely low numbers, the problem that the Obama administration had was they had an exceptionally high number of unaccompanied children coming to our border.
Right, right, right,
And
right.
so the Border Patrol Union then was going around through the Federation of Americans on Immigration Reform and all these anti-immigrant groups. They were promoting them, and they were feeding them intelligence, saying this is where the children are going to be bused, so that then right-wing people could come and protest. We had a big protest here in California at the time.
Okay, so this was a
Yeah,
stage
so now you see
political
stage political stuff.
oh
And
my
so
god.
even though the
These
numbers
are
of people crossing
20
illegally,
children in this man I can't. It
yeah.
is so disgusting.
So when you hear the right say, well, Obama built the cages for children that Trump used, they're actually correct. They're actually correct in that. Obama, during the Obama administration, they did build the cages in the processing centers that you then see in the Trump administration, the chain gates and stuff,
Yep.
that then the Trump administration used. And also the Biden administration has used. And now Trump administration is using it again. Okay. Now, one of the problems with the Democrats is they never educate people on the truth. They just come back with what the Border Patrol says, and they've just allowed them to dictate the narrative down here. The
Wow.
right wing has control of the narrative, and the Border Patrol Union works directly close with in their offices talking about how to manipulate things and this and that on Fox News, News Nation, OAN. Then Trump gets in. And Trump inherits some of the lowest illegal crossings that we have seen, like I said,
Right.
since the 1970s.
That's not the narrative that they tell, but
No.
if you go look at I've seen those numbers, and you are
Yeah.
absolutely correct. Yes.
And you can see if you go through my Substack page, you'll see where I write about this and I give graphs and I show.
Yep.
One of the things that they do to manipulate Americans is they only say the total number of people crossing. Were the total number of people crossing at times maybe higher or lower? Yeah. But what you see after 9/11 is you see if you look at and you compare the number of staffing in the Border Patrol to the number of apprehensions, it goes like this during the George W. Bush and Obama era. And the reason why it does is because they've doubled and tripled their manpower. So now when we have 200,000 arrests per year, it's not as hard on the agency because they don't have like 5,000 agents like they had when I was an agent.
Right.
They have almost 20,000 agents. So they're built to handle this. Um, so Trump inherits this, and the average, I think they were averaging 1 to 2 apprehensions per agent per month in the Border Patrol. I'm almost positive about that. Please check my Substack page and you'll see that. 1 to 2 people crossing illegally per Border Patrol agent per month when Trump enters the office. Now, let me remind you that when I was an agent, I was apprehending groups of 20, 30, and more
Mhm.
every night, multiple times a night. And so it was not as hard on the agency, but they kept up the rhetoric that they were overwhelmed the entire time, even though they were not.
Okay.
And so they keep getting all this money and they keep getting more power and they keep getting bigger and bigger. And that's how they ended up controlling the narrative in the first Trump administration. So in the first Trump administration, Trump's goal, which they don't state, is to actually cause an invasion. He needs to build an invasion. And what Bush and Obama did to get those numbers so low, it's not that I agree with their policies, but it did cause the numbers to go very low, is they paid Central American countries, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and they paid Mexico to stop the migrants from getting to our southern border. And at the same
Okay.
time, we developed computer systems for Mexico so that when they cross Guatemala territory into Mexico, that they have to get a permit from Mexican officials to be able to move through their country. When they do that, we put them into the system that we paid for Mexico to have, and then we can see how many people are coming. We can see if they have criminal backgrounds or not. We can demand that the Mexico grab these individual people in these caravans and take them away. We can even see how many people in those caravans are sick. We can see how many people are children. We can see how many people are women. Okay.
Yeah.
Trump, if you go back when he came in, he said, we're not going to give El Salvador and all these countries money anymore because they have not stopped the illegal immigration. So he cut those programs, and that in turn made the officials in those countries stop trying to stop them to come and allowed them to come.
Okay.
Then he needed, and that wasn't enough. So then he needed to create a backup on the southern border. And the way he did it was first he passed what's called Migration Protection Protocol. It's an oxymoron, MPP, which required people seeking asylum instead of coming to CBP ports of entry or instead of crossing illegally and presenting themselves to me, a Border Patrol agent, which is still legal. It's still legal in the United States to cross illegally if you're an asylum seeker and find a Border Patrol agent and ask them to process you for asylum. Instead of doing that, he said, you apply at the ports and then we'll let you know when you have your meeting. And so that created a backlog. And that also started people crossing illegally. Sorry, my dog's hacking. Started people crossing illegally. Because if you do not have enough legal avenues, enough people to inspect people as they come in, because many of them are legitimately seeking asylum. They are in danger. They are trying to kidnap their children. They are trying to kidnap the women. They are trying to force the men into drug trafficking and so forth. If you do not have legal avenues for these people who are running to apply, they will turn right around and cross illegally. Every Border Patrol agent knows this. Every CBP agent knows this. And MPP was not enough. So then what did he do? Well, Stephen Miller prior had tried to close the asylum system, all the legal avenues using other types of diseases. But when COVID came around, boom, there you are, baby. Now we can close it, right? It's a pandemic.
Yep.
So they close it. And when it takes a couple of months, but at the end of the Trump administration, what you see is the numbers start going like this, and then it continues through Biden because Biden kept the Trump policies of keeping the legal avenues closed for the first 3 years of his administration. And
Okay.
so that caused this invasion.
The
And what
invasion.
yeah,
The
this fake
invasion that he started.
the invasion that he started. And unfortunately, the Democrats, being so ignorant and only willing to do Republican light policies, somewhat light, not really that light, just kept on with the policies. And I remember in 2023, I want to say it was May 2023, that Biden said he's going to end Title 42, which was the policy they used to shut down during the pandemic, shut the asylum system down during the pandemic. And the Border Patrol Union and all the Republicans were all over the news. You can go back and see it. They're like, if Title 42 ends, man, we're going to be overrun. It's going to be crazy. We're going to be overrun. We're not going to be able to handle it. And I'm like, no, it's not going to happen. The numbers will drop and they will go to the legal avenues because these people have families. They
Yeah.
don't want to come across.
Right. That's
And that's
right.
exactly what happened. It dropped in the first day by 50%. Illegal crossings dropped by 50%. Then within a week, they were saying it was down by 75% because people believed that they had a legal avenue. It was only once they realized they didn't have a legal avenue that then they started crossing back again. And then you see Donald Trump and Republicans and the Border Patrol Union saying, well, now they're just letting in illegals through the legal way. And it's just ridiculous. That is the legal way. Present yourself and be inspected. That's what we want, right? If we want people to come to our country and join their families and this and that and get jobs. We want good people to come here. And the only way that we can inspect them is if we actually inspect them, right? So
Right. But that doesn't. Yeah.
unfortunately, yeah, unfortunately, Biden promised amnesty. Biden promised that he would end child separation, which had already ended when Trump did that policy. But let's be honest, child separation happens all the time in these agencies.
It's
I
happening
did it.
now.
I didn't even know I did it until I, looked at some of the casework and I'm like, yeah, I was separating families and doing this. So, but the actual policy that they started in Trump 1.0 of taking the children simply for crossing illegally and requesting asylum was ended. However, what we also saw during the Obama administration was this taking newborn babies from mothers who crossed who were pregnant and then were giving birth on this side, which happens quite a bit.
Mm.
Everyone says because they're trying to get United States citizenship. Well, that's probably true to a certain extent, but it's also that they can't get any medical help in Mexico when they're giving birth as well.
Well,
And so instead of having the Border Patrol go in and take the newborns, they were, and I don't know if this policy started with Obama. I do know in 2014, according to the article that I put out, and if you go down my feed on Substack, you'll see it, that they started tracking it. And so they were taking newborns away from their mothers simply because they had crossed to ask for asylum during the Biden administration and didn't put an end to it. They started just keeping track of the numbers that they were doing.
No, my
So
goodness.
then we go to Trump 1.0. We know I just talked about all that, and then we go to Biden. He makes these promises and he reneges on almost every single one. Now, I'm going to tell you, I was asked by a couple of Biden, I guess I would call them proxies,
Mhm.
to do commercials and advertisements saying how good they were on immigration. I was like,
No.
I'm not going to fall for that shit. And and I even had a call from one of the legal counsels to the Democrats uh, Homeland Security Committee on the Democrat side during the Biden administration, asking me if I would support and come out and if I would be willing to go back in uniform. If
Mm.
I would be willing to put the uniform back on, come out. They said of retirement. I did not retire from the Border Patrol. I resigned in protest after 6 years before 9/11. I do not get a pension or any of that stuff.
Yeah, I
So,
saw someone claim that you did. I
yeah,
thought,
yeah. I
mm,
wish I did, but no, I don't get any of that. No, I don't wish I did because then I would have had to stay there for 20 years. Um, so so they asked me, how do we get Border Patrol to like us? Do you think if we gave them a raise? And I was like, are you paying attention to what's going on up there? I said, do any of y'all think that this is like they are all in on Trump? All in on Trump. They're putting out fake propaganda. I caught them doing fake crossings and filming it for
no.
even actually CNN. They filmed it for CNN. They did a fake crossing with the Border Patrol
Oh my
Union.
goodness.
That
These
was written
people
up
have
in the
no
American Prospect.
there's
Huh?
no shame. There's no
There's
integrity.
no shame. And there were several ways that I knew and other activists down here alerted me to it, and we knew is number one, they had the migrants lined up on the south side, all orderly in a line. They had cameras at the ready. They had CNN on a boat and all this other stuff. And every single migrant, because it was during COVID, had a COVID mask on. I'm like, there's no smuggler give a shit whether you got COVID or not. Get out of
Right.
here.
Yeah.
That and we could hear the union in the background saying, "We're going to 26 them," which is Border Patrol talk for we're going to put them in jail for 2 years. It's called a 8 USC 1326. It's a reentry after formal deportation. So it was
Oh.
all a big setup to get the visuals of the invasion. Okay, and so that's what they were doing the whole time during the Biden administration. But the Biden administration did not want to cross over and say, I mean, when he was trying to get elected, he said, this is wrong. This is immoral. We shouldn't do this. We shouldn't take their children. We shouldn't blah, 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 blah. We shouldn't put them in cells and hold them like this. Families should stay together. And then he completely reversed. Did he open up after 2023, the last year, open up more and allow more people to come in? Yes, he did. And what you saw with a lot of people coming in was 4 years worth of the asylum system being closed and those people being processed and entered. The right kept saying they're allowing illegal immigrants. When the Republicans say the Biden administration allowed, I don't know, they increase it every time. 5 million, 10 million, 20 million illegals technically in is what they're saying. That's not true. They're not undocumented. They're not quote unquote illegal if they've been processed by CBP and Border Patrol. Even when Trump got in on this second administration, and they still say it. Border Patrol and CBP have not released a single illegal immigrant into the United States.
Jen, I
They
have
never
watched
release a single immigrant into the United States because once you've been inspected by us and we release you, you have your documents. You're
nobody
no
even knows what
longer
the hell
undocumented.
nobody even knows what the hell the number really is. I mean, honest
No.
I have heard while he was campaigning and right afterwards. It's interesting how these people can just pull numbers out of thin air. Like, I have literally watched the president on different interviews while he was campaigning for Trump 2.0, right? Say, they've let 2 million people in the country. And then it went to, they've let 10 million people in illegally. Now we have 12 million people. I mean, somebody had put this together with the film, right? Like all the
Mhm,
different interviews. It got all the way up to like 22 million people.
mhm.
There is no accountability for the numbers that they are throwing out there, and nobody is asking them to prove them at all. They can just say whatever the hell they want,
The other thing that Biden did was he reinstituted paying the countries to keep people from coming here.
which
So
you
there
said
was
was effective, correct?
it was effective. I don't agree with the policy. I think it's brutal.
Okay.
What it ends up doing is killing and brutalizing people down there instead of up here. So it's just
Killing and
pushing our
brutalizing of people we are not in support of.
yeah, and so in that aspect, I remember I was in Sasebe during the winter time. Border Patrol was allowing asylum-seeking children to freeze out there on the border, and I went out there to put them in cars and get them to their stupid Border Patrol camps so that they would process them, which they
Honey
threatened
Bear
to charge me for smuggling.
Honey oh my god. Honey Badger
But
said the latest number is they're saying 30 million.
it's just not true.
It just keeps
And
going up.
yeah, and I was out in this place called Sasebe. It's out in the Sonoran Desert. It's a very, very small area. It's very difficult to cross. A lot of bodies, a lot of dead bodies out there.
Hmm.
Border Patrol agents even die out there. It's very treacherous. That's where water barrels are that I help pay for with my Substack subscription. So please subscribe
That's
if you
so
can.
amazing of you.
And and I remember there was a cartel member sitting on a rock on the south side, and I walked up to him and I said, "Are you a smuggler?" And in Spanish, and he was like, "Yeah." And I said, "Can I talk to you a minute?" And he said, "Yeah." So I'll give you some water and something to eat. So I gave him some water and something to eat, and I said, "Where are all the migrants? Where are your customers?" And he said, "The Biden administration, they are paying the federales to grab them and Mexican immigration to grab them as soon as they get close to the border and then push them back south." Um, and so that's what they were doing. This is the same thing that Obama and so does that work? Absolutely, yes, it works, and it helps the numbers drop. And so we see Trump come in now. He hasn't stopped those payments this time, has he? Mm.
Hmm.
Because now he has no cause. He doesn't want to create an invasion. The other thing is during the Trump 1.0 the Biden administration, I'm sorry, during the Biden administration, you would see the Border Patrol Union, Republicans, and former DHS officials from Trump's administration, Tom Homan, who are now in charge again, Rodney Scott, who's in charge of CBP now. They went around with a group called Border 911, and they were telling everybody around the country and anybody who would listen that Biden's open borders. You probably heard that a million times,
A
right?
million times, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. But how could the border be open if all of your agents are being sent down to actually process people and deal with people? So if you're actually complaining about all your agents spending their time processing, it sounds to me like you're actually getting a lot of people. Now, I will defend the Border Patrol in that when you overwhelm them with processing asylum seekers, then they cannot concentrate on actual criminals who are trying to get into the country and stuff and the job that they do need to do. That is true. But this they were overwhelmed by their own policies intentionally, by the policies that their union was pushing, by the
Yep,
policies that Donald Trump was pushing, and that Republicans were pushing. So
and
they put those agents through that themselves. They did that to themselves.
exploiting my children, exploiting immigrants, doing I
Yeah,
mean, this
for
is
political
really
reasons.
it's
Yeah.
it's sickening because the rhetoric that there are human beings attached, real lives. Like you said,
Yeah,
80
but we don't consider them human beings in these agencies. We call them subhuman and tonks.
you you call them can you repeat that so I am understanding clearly what you are articulating? Just so I
In the immigration agencies,
No.
we call them subhuman and we call them tonks. Tonks. or TONC. And
Okay.
we tell people outside of our agencies who think that those are racist terms because they are racist terms. I'm being honest with you. I know I don't say these words anymore and I don't agree with it, but I'm
I think
telling
that
you the
it's
truth.
important for people to hear the truth. I
Yeah.
want the unbridled, unvarnished truth. I think, that as Americans, we all just deserve to know what that is,
Yeah. And so
right?
the truth is we tell people outside of the agency that means temporarily out of native country or true origin not known. What it actually means is it's the sound our flashlights make when we hit an
Oh,
illegal, as we would say, in the head. We
oh,
even have T-shirts. I
okay.
have a picture of one, flashlight,
Okay.
and it
Wow.
says Tonk on it. So the reason why we have that is because over 50% of our agents in the Border Patrol are Latinos. And a lot of our white agents like to use the words, and I'll say it. I apologize for saying it, but we're going to be honest here. A lot of the older agents used to say wetback.
Oh, yeah.
And then obviously, Beaner and
Yep.
Spick. And then we are told and discouraged from saying that and to adopt Tonk so that the Latino agents do not feel that we're being prejudiced against them, even though they didn't really usually get to the ranks that the white managers get and stuff. A few of them do, but you have to really like be on board with everything to be promoted, kind of like the women in the Border Patrol.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Um, and so this idea of open borders, you have to understand the other thing that Republicans and right wing people were doing is they were announcing to migrants who were considering coming here or who were waiting during the Biden administration, Biden's open borders. The border is open. They were giving them T-shirts to say, Biden, please let us
Mhm.
come in and all this other stuff. So the impression they kept saying, well, the impression is that Democrats are easier on migrants. Why do they have that impression? Because you're saying Biden's open borders, and you're saying constantly that Democrats are just trying to bring them in so they can get votes. And they're sharing this information down south on radio stations and stuff, so they hear this. Now they hear the borders closed. And also, a lot of people don't want to come here because of what they see is going on, and the economy is tanked. Even
Yeah.
though they're denying
There's
it,
a lot of
there's no work
Americans
for
that have
them to do.
articulated that they don't want to. There's so many Americans that have reached out and have shared with me that they're looking into leaving themselves and because they don't want to be here. So, yeah, and we're definitely not getting people wanting to come here, tourists from other countries because they're
But
afraid of what could happen to them, when they're here.
But the thing is that this plan for Border Patrol and CBP and ICE to do this mass deportation has been in fact since I was an agent, I realize now. I just didn't know it. And a former chief, David Aguilar out of Tucson, he then became deputy commissioner of CBP, I think during the Obama administration. And his plan was to militarize the Border Patrol as much as possible. So after 9/11, we start seeing Border Patrol, CBP, and ICE getting training from IDF. So they're
Mm.
sending their training agents over to Israel to train in that and then bring it here. Most of our surveillance systems on the border are Israeli.
Can we talk about that? All right, well, we don't have to talk about that part right now, but I just did published a piece today because I had done a bunch of research on the data systems that they are using right now currently, and it connecting all these dots with how they are actually scooping people up and the technology that's being used and how that's happening and how they're tracking all of us, which is disturbing, and everybody needs to understand that. But back to what you're
Yeah,
talking
we'll
about.
we'll do that in the next one.
Yeah,
So write
but
that down
between
so we remember to do that in the
yeah,
next
but
one.
between the Democrats and the Republicans, what you're talking about, I truly appreciate your unbridled honesty and truth about all of this because Americans have been lied to this entire time,
They
right?
have been lied to, and the
Been lied to.
Democrats have funded this. They have been taking money from the companies that are getting contracts in this. Our ICBP and Border Patrol management, high-ranking management. You're welcome, Francis. Thank you. are steering these companies so that they can get these billion-dollar, million-dollar
Yep.
contracts, and
Yes.
then they retire and go work for them. There's
Yeah,
a
I heard
huge
you say
revolving
that's
door
today,
going on.
Waj. I which so you see, they have a whole career planned out here. Like,
They do.
they're helping bring in contracts, "Hey, I'll introduce you to so and so," and next thing you know, when it's time for them to retire or maybe sooner if they get a sweet deal, they can
Mhm.
go work for the
Yeah,
data company that's selling commercial data.
and then they represent that company to the US government that they used to work for and say, "Don't you want them to do their contracted thing?"
Right,
"Oh, well, yes, I do, Mr. Tom Homan.
right.
Yes. Can you steer some more contracts to us, Mr. Tom Homan,
Oh,
for
speaking of, didn't he have
$50,000?"
wasn't it like 60 grand that he had in his
50 grand.
$50,000 in some little bag while he was
Yeah, and
really?
some Cava salad bag or something
Java
like that.
salad bag, yeah. Where did that come from? Does anybody know? Does anybody have any
The FBI the
unbelievable.
FBI put up a sting and offered
I
it to him,
know.
and he took the money, although he says he didn't, but they refused to investigate it. So this is what's going on is essentially, if you look at it, it's the war on terror. The war on drugs became the war on terror, and all these defense contractors are involved with this. So those defense contractors that did that are now the defense contractors on our border. And it just keeps going and going and going. It's about money, it's about power. And I often say, because I talk a lot down here on the border, so you'll find a lot of people that come to my talks. A lot of them have loved ones that are border patrol agents or ICE agents or CBP agents, or they know them, they go to church with them, and they're like, I know this person's a good person. Well, you can get yourself into a niche within these agencies. Like, you could go serve 3 years on the southern border and then go to the academies and be a firearms instructor for the rest of your career. That's
Mm,
a great job, especially if you love shooting. It's great to teach people how to handle firearms the way they should, and you get to live in a normal society and not down here in the militarized zone. And so there's a lot of people in these agencies with good intentions, like I got in, and it takes a while to understand it. And at the same time, you have to understand they're constantly ingesting all of this propaganda because that's the only thing that they're paying attention to. But at some point, you recognize that the people around you, sitting around you in the same uniform, okay, that
yes.
guy, I know he's smuggling. That guy, I know he's raped a female agent. This guy, and you also know, as you process these immigrants, unless you're an ICE, which typically is supposed to only go after criminal migrants, but of course this has changed. But prior, you realize, and the thing that used to kill me as a border patrol agent, it's like I always wanted to catch, somebody I wanted to stop bad people from coming in this country.
Sure.
But the truth is 99% of them are not criminals.
They're
And you
coming for
spend
a
your
better
day
way of life.
processing people looking for work, people looking for asylum,
Yep.
moms and dads, children and this and that and blah blah blah.
They're coming for the same reason that everyone came to America from the beginning, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Seeking a better way of life. That is
Many of
how
them are seeking religious freedom as well,
exactly.
which
Yes.
and so and it just is. So when we sit here and we say that that Democrats are easy on immigrants, that Democrats want more immigrants to come in and vote illegally, or so I get into this argument with this woman this morning, and I'm like, you're just not willing to admit that Obama was, God love him and everything, but he was not good on immigration, and they've just continued this. And what you see, how many Democrats do you see now saying abolish ICE after they shot an American woman in the head for doing what? Sitting sideways in a road, not even blocking it.
Well, I'm still waiting for that, Jen.
Seriously,
I'm
we're all
still
still waiting for that.
waiting.
They
I'm
won't do
waiting.
it. Look at the HBO film Critical Incident. No, I wouldn't be doing my due justice to my own work if I didn't mention it. It's on
Please.
HBO. Critical Incident. It's about these cover-up teams in the Border Patrol, and you will see how they're doing this good investigation and this good event. you'll see is exactly what they did to this man Anastasio in 2010.
For
And
those of you who have not seen it, let me just say, as someone, I have nothing to do with this film. There's no benefit of me to say, you should see this because, but I did see it because I trust and appreciate Jen. And when she had told me that it was debuting, I saw it at the very end of December. As the first night it debuted, I went on and, paid to become a member of HBO because it was worth it to me because I really wanted to see it. And literally less than 2 weeks after, as Renee Good was, and I'm going to say it, executed at point blank range by Jonathan Ross, the ICE officer. And then the aftermath of that, I witnessed exactly what I saw in the critical incident death at the border documentary that had just been released on HBO. And I am telling you now, if you haven't seen it and you want to understand it, and I mean, I'm really big on pattern recognition and trying to understand the inner workings. And because a lot of us are left very confused as, if you have a moral conscience or any sort of a moral compass at all, right? We are scratching our heads going, wait a minute, this isn't who we are. This isn't what we stand for. How did this happen? I don't even understand how is this happening?
Mhm.
Well, had I not seen that video or that documentary, I would be confused. I would be like, well, gosh, this isn't, I mean, one can speculate, right? Well, they're trying to, change the narrative and launder the narrative and villainize her. Okay, sure. But I didn't know the inner workings of the system, of the mechanics that existed behind it.
for
And
a
that is what
3 decades, for over 3 decades, quite
And that
honestly.
is what is exposed blatantly by the video, by the, documentary that Jen participated in, which is excellent because I watched it play out in front of my own eyes as this woman was executed point blank range and watching the response of ICE, of, the DHS, of the president, the vice president, Noam, anyone from this administration that's speaking on it, and just completely insulating this individual and protecting the crime, in my opinion, or at least not even I'm not an investigator and I'm not a prosecutor. So I should say, how come they're not even investigating, right? The crime. And yet, today you saw how there were people under DOJ that have left their jobs, right? There were prosecutors who left their jobs because they refused to prosecute or investigate Jonathan Ross. But guess who they want to investigate?
The
Rebecca Good,
widow.
her widow,
Yeah.
Renee Good's wife. That is who they want to investigate instead. And um in an act of defiance and refusal, they left. They resigned. Several
A-
prosecutors.
And that's one of the aspects of these teams is they don't ever investigate the actual crime. They
Yes.
investigate the victims. And it's interesting because the film also, I want to say, I've heard it's also available for streaming on Amazon Prime.
Oh, I'm glad you said that. So
It's not
please,
going to be out for long. They won't allow you to record it. They're trying to dump it essentially, and the HBO took it from the producers and director at the end, and they made sure that the chief in charge of this case, Anastasio case, and the cover up is Rodney Scott. He was the border patrol chief at the time here in San Diego when it happened. They
tell
made
who he
sure,
is now.
yeah, they made sure not to mention that in the film. You notice. And so now he's the head of CBP, and these teams, and they even said on there at the end, there's a title page that says these teams were disbanded by the Biden administration. That's technically true, but they just had the teams resign the border patrol and then put on CBP shirts, and they are doing the same thing within CBP. So they essentially just legalized these cover up teams. So, this is what I mean when I say if we don't get control of our Democrats, then we're going to keep doing this same thing. Right now, there are Democrats, Francis, you said Dems keep funding ICE. I saw that. And they do keep funding ICE and CBP and Border Patrol. Right now, there are at least 2 plans out. I believe Veronica Escobar has one, and then there's a representative, and I love Veronica Escobar to death. I think she's wonderful, but what she's doing right now, I do not agree with. Um, and then also this representative out of New Mexico, they both have bills and ideas with they want to reform, they want to bring them back down to the border, they all this other stuff and blah 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 blah. Before I'm not even talking about reform. What these bills have is more funding. Okay. We cannot, at the very least, we cannot have more funding. And we have to have some sort of accountability. We can't just keep pushing this under the rug like the
No.
Biden administration did, or you end up with people in charge of this stuff like Rodney Scott again. The Democrats have the opportunity. So Senator Padilla, Alex Padilla, he's my senator here in California. He's in the film. The only thing he could manage to say was, wow, this looks really bad if it's true. And he hasn't said a damn word about the film. Nobody has said a damn word about
Now,
the
let me
film.
just say also, the man who was tackled, Senator Padilla, if you all recall, this was back in, I think it was July, either early June or early July, was literally tackled when he walked in to question Kristi Noem's during her press conference. He was tackled and dragged out of the room. That same man is refusing to speak up about this right now. Why? Why is
Yeah.
that? And why say if it's true? Do we understand here? There is something that we, the people, we are stronger and bigger than any one individual politician. And to me, I just want to continue to say it, scream it from the rooftops for anybody who's listening. That if I don't, I often hear from people because I live in Ohio, a very deeply red state. I'm a blue dot floating in a red sea, but I don't even want to say a blue dot. I'm an independent dot. I'm an independent thinker who is not going to, you know, latch my cart or my, onto a Democratic train for the purpose of continuing to support the same things that are going on exactly right now. We have to demand reformation. Somebody had said that in our noble blend. Someone had said something about, I think it was, we have to demand reformation. Waj Ali continually speaks about reformation, not restoration. He's exactly right. We the people have the opportunity to demand this. And for those people who say things like, well, I don't have to worry about that because I have a Democratic rep. If I heard that once, I've heard it 100 million times, and they're very proud of themselves. And I am happy for you that you have a Democratic rep. I mean, because odds are they are better than what I have here. Not odds are. I am telling you right now, they have to be better than what I have in Ohio. Okay. They have to be. However, I will tell you that if they are not going to stand up in this moment when a mother, an innocent woman who was doing nothing but sitting in her car with the last words of, hey, dude, I'm not mad at you, with a, smile. And she didn't do anything wrong. She did nothing wrong to this man. She's not a criminal. They don't have jurisdiction over ICE, right? Um, or I mean,
They
I'm
don't
sorry,
have jurisdiction over traffic
ICE
violence.
doesn't have jurisdiction over American citizens sitting in her car. She's not blocking them, right? And he shot her. So
Yeah.
if they're going to go and continue to fund these programs, then your Democrat is not working for you or any of us. Is that a
Uh,
fair statement, Jen?
that's a fair statement. I see people asking who that New Mexico representative is. I'll let you know in a minute. It's down in the boot heel. And I want to say he's a Latino, but I'll get that to you after we get off here. So yeah, I'm with Lisa. It's like when it comes down to actually voting, if your choice is between a Republican and a Democrat, yeah, I'm going to go with the Democrat, right? So I'm not saying don't vote for Democrats, but what I am saying is now's the time. before these midterms get going, if they get going,
Demand.
to demand. Need
Demand.
to demand that they right now they're looking at I know that they have the big beautiful bill funding, but in addition, they have to approve the normal yearly appropriations that they had before for
And they can't.
DHS,
No way.
ICBP, Border Patrol. You need to call, don't write, call your representatives and and demand that they do not fund these agencies. They have violated the Constitution. They are obstructing justice right now in this investigation because your local and state officials have jurisdiction over use of force incidents committed within their territory, within their control. And so they have that legal authority. They are obstructing justice by not doing this. If we continue down this road and we do not primary these Democrats that take money from these border companies, then we're going to be still here. You have to remember that Joe Biden helped fund these police cities and stuff like that. He started another one. He did nothing but fund them and give them thing after thing after thing after thing. The right and the Border Patrol agencies see the Democrats as weak. Their intent is eventually, like Donald Trump said, that they are going to arrest these Democrats and they are going to put them in these concentration camps along with the people who are LGBTQ and along with their supporters.
Well,
Um,
let's not kid ourselves. At the end of the day, fascism comes for all of us. There isn't, I mean,
yeah,
even Stephen Miller, which I think this is, I mean, it's sick, but it's also how the irony of even Stephen Miller himself, who is the most evil person, I think, probably that one of them, right? They are now forming these white only communities that are that including Stephen Miller is not allowed to live in, right?
yeah.
Because he's Jewish. So that includes Jews. They don't want Jewish people there either. So even so see how this whole thing works? At the end of
Yeah,
the
and I hate
day,
to go ahead.
at the end of the day, everyone gets excluded. This is how fascism works. They're coming for all of us. So as
And
far
I
as I'm
hate to tell
concerned,
these Latino agents is that when they're done with all of that, they're coming after you too. You're just there doing
exactly.
their dirty work right now. You're
Exactly,
just
and
there
that's the
doing
part that
their
kills
dirty
me.
work.
Anyone who is Latino, and I'm saying this as a Latino person, I don't care if you think, you're crazy if you support this administration. You are not in the club. You are not in the
Yeah.
club. How many I don't care how many, what neighborhood you live in. I don't care how much money you have. I don't care about any of it. I'm telling you right now, they do not you're a tonk at the end of the day. Am I wrong about that, John?
No, you're right about that. That's how they view us. And you have to understand too, there's a definite push in these agencies after 9/11 to start hiring people that were right wing, that were Christian fundamentalists and so forth. So they've really been very careful. There's a border writer called Todd Miller. He's written many books about the border. One is called Border Patrol Nation. And then in there he talks about a Latino agent, Mexican American agent, very fit, loved his job, this and that. And one day he's parked next to another agent and they're just nothing going on. So they're talking like cops do. And they're door to door, driver to driver talking. And the one agent says, I can understand why people cross illegally, why they come up here to seek better jobs. There's not enough jobs down there, and I'm proud to be a Mexican American. I'm proud of my heritage, but I understand there's rules and laws and this and that. And the agent that he was talking to turned him in. And over the 2 years, they started investigating him and then called him in to fire him. And they said they thought he was a socialist.
Oh, okay.
And because he did not deny his Latino heritage and said he was proud of it, they fired him. So you Latinos in the Border Patrol,
Yeah.
yeah, you're going to get yours eventually. They're going to
Everybody's
come
going
around.
to get theirs eventually. So the notion of silence is safety is not true. Right now, we have to exercise our First Amendment rights as much as we feel comfortable. And, here's what I've told people. in the past. Here's another thing I want to share with people. And this is not, I'm not saying this in a derogatory manner. I have a dear friend, and one would think, I mean, I focus on this 24/7. I'm writing, I'm researching, I'm talking to people, I'm out there, I'm running local resistance groups, I'm involved in I'm doing a lot of things within my own community as well. This is what I live, eat, sleep, and breathe, right? I call a friend on Sunday just to, because we're supposed to get together, hadn't seen her over the holidays. And I say, can you believe this shit? Can you believe what's going on? She said, what are you talking about? This was 6 days after Renee Good was murdered.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? Excuse me? How do you not know? How do you not know this? I must have sounded a little aggressive. She's like, "Well, not everyone as into politics like you are." And again, we just have to go back to this. Yeah, I look,
Politics?
I can't even make this
My
shit up. I'm
God.
like, dude, a mother just like you, she has 4 kids, of 3 children was shot in the face. How do you not know about this? But the reality is, friends, I'm just telling you, I know that and this is a woman who's my age with a master's degree. She's a professional. She is intelligent. Okay. So I'm just trying to tell you all that it's not even just mainstream media. There are plenty of people out there that they aren't even watching mainstream media. So even if they did cover it, they're just kind of living their best life, I guess, until they're not going to be. Right. So for those of us who are aware, I think it's our duty and obligation to make sure that don't assume that the people you know in your life know about these things because now I've taken on the responsibility of going, for God's sakes, now I'm going to have to, when things like this occur or something really big happens, I am now going to start texting this information or emailing it to all the people that I know personally. It doesn't have to be on social media to make sure they understand what is happening because eventually we need people to speak up. We just do. We need it
I've
today.
It's interesting when I started this and in the last years when I've been doing Substack and getting this information more out there, I used to get pissed off if I wrote something and then like, I've already talked about this and people don't know about it. And what I realize is that we're kind of almost kind of like musicians who have to keep singing the same song over and over
Absolutely.
again.
Hmm.
And so you have to keep repeating yourself, and that's why I'm trying to get on as many, well, not trying, but people are asking me to. I'm trying to
I'm
take
so
as many as
glad.
I
I'm so
can.
glad to have seen you on Waj and all of the other platforms and
Yeah.
interviews because we need you. We need
You,
you there.
we have to keep repeating this. Somebody wrote on here, well, what do we do? Well, we just told you what to do. You need to primary your Democrats and make sure that they promise that they're not going to give any money to ICE, CBP, and Border Patrol. For sure, we definitely need to say abolish ICE because they violated the Constitution. They have sworn an oath to the Constitution, and they are now openly violating it for one man, Donald Trump. They can no longer carry those guns and those badges. We are better off with the undocumented people than with these people running around our cities with their guns and their badges, killing our neighbors. And, I have friends who've known that I've been doing this for for now a decade and they know everything I've gone through and stuff. They don't read my books, they don't watch the movie. They just feel that it's too stressful and too hard and this and that and blah
Yeah, it
blah
is
blah. And
stressful
I'm
and
like,
hard.
"Well, I hope somebody doesn't feel that way when they come for you." I don't know what to say to people.
But that's actually I think it's exactly right. I think that. Here's someone said, "How about Rachel Maddow, getting on her?"
Rachel Maddow knows who I am. I used to be on MSNBC during the first Trump administration. I will tell you that MS Now has reached out to me, and they're going
Good.
to be talking to them soon. I did talk to them the other day. but Rachel Maddow knows who I am. I used to be. I've been on Chris Hayes. I've been on the guy who raps all the time,
but
Ali
not
Velshi.
recently.
No, not Ali Velshi. No, but see so this is what happened. So during the first Trump administration, I was actually on a panel on MSNBC, and what's her name? She's former attorney with DOJ, out of Alabama, that's on there. Joyce Ellen Vance. She was on there, and we were discussing ICE, and we were discussing you know, the some of the rhetoric coming out of ICE at the time. And I said this was my last time there, and when they, I guess, banned me at that time, was for saying, I think we need to be concerned that the rhetoric coming out of the Proud Boys and the patriot groups and all of this, these white supremacist groups, is the same exact rhetoric that comes out of ICE.
Oh,
And that was like, you've gone too far. So then during the Biden administration, what we saw at MSNBC, Joyce White Vance, thank you. So, um, and I'm not saying that Joyce is bad or anything, but you have to understand she's still of the institution, though she is doing better now. Listen, criticism of these people is just criticism of these people. It doesn't mean you should not listen to them. It doesn't mean you should hate them. It's just, people criticize me all the time. That's how I have learned, is people said, no, you're not right about that, Jen. Let's talk about this and this and this. It's
there's
called
nothing
learning. It's
wrong,
called growing.
that's questioning
That's
people.
questioning,
I
right? Lawrence
appreciate.
O'Donnell is wonderful too, but I've never been on his show.
So here's
So
a thing that everybody here can do. If you think that the information that Jen has, the information and the insight and the knowledge and perspective, which I do, is beneficial to me, this is another thing that we can do. Like reach out to these different shows, reach out to these people and say, hey, you know, I just heard Jen speak on X platforms. She was just on Waj Ali's The Left Hook earlier, here, wherever, and say, hey, I really think you should have her on because we need to get her mainstreamed. We need people, from all over the country, not just on Substack, who might not be on Substack. We need people that are just watching, MSNBC or CNN or whatever it may be, to hear her share her story and speak about what she's experienced and tell the unbridled truth, right?
yeah,
About,
yeah, people have been trying. Someone mentioned the Midas Network. People have been mentioning the Midas Network and
yeah,
trying to
you
get me
should get
on.
on Midas.
They've
They
been
need
trying to
you.
get me on there forever, and the Midas Network doesn't want me. And so,
Why
like,
don't
going
they
back,
want you? That's a little
I think
interesting.
because I'm too far to the left in their opinion, and that's what happened to MSNBC during the Biden administration. They wanted me to not talk negatively about Biden, and I'm like, I don't care who's in there.
What
I'm going to
about
say
Jim
the truth.
Acosta? Yeah, what about Jim Acosta? Because
I
he's
don't know
thinks
him. I don't know him. I know you
I don't
met him
know him
the other
either,
day,
but I
right?
just met him last week, so now I'm gonna send him something now that I know it. I don't know him personally either, but I'm a subscriber, a paid
Yeah.
subscriber, because I do think he's great. You would be great on Jim Acosta.
It is difficult to understand how we got here. It is difficult to understand the manipulation that has been done to people. But I want to say that when you say not you, Lisa, when
No, I
people in
understand.
general say such simplistic things as you're an idiot, you have to support the Democrats, they're the only ones that are creating legal avenues, this is just not true. And you
Yeah,
need to
Daniel
put
Moody.
pressure on those Democrats to not be doing that, or else
Yeah.
we will be in the same situation that we find ourselves in right now.
They're not so a lot of these people are not made for the moment. They're just not made for the moment, and if you can't do your job and have the courage to do what America needs, I don't want you either. Then I'd rather see. I know everybody talks about, well, we can't have an independent come in there because then we're gonna split the voting pool. I say, you know what? If you are not going to do your job and somebody has to run it as an independent to be who is espousing all of the values and the courage that we need at this moment, then that is a person that I would vote for. I'm sorry, I am not willing to just go with the flow because we have been doing this for how many years? How many? You told me 3. Okay, let's just take the ICE issue. I know we're not single issue voters here, but if we just consider the ICE, you're telling me this has been going on for 3 decades. No one has fixed it in 3 decades, right? No one has
No, they keep
addressed it.
adding to it and making it bigger and bigger and bigger and
Eh,
bigger.
Let me ask you in your opinion. Just I know you don't have all the answers, but you were inside the system.
Yeah.
What are some things that you think could improve it, fi fix it, maybe not quite what would make it better? What would be what are, like, 5 steps in the right direction for us to improve what we have now and where you would like to see us go? Because odds are what you think is reasonable is also something I would probably find reasonable.
Uh, Take Border Patrol and CBP and put them back down on the border and create a robust and humane asylum system because a country like ours, an asylum system is essential to our national security. We cannot have national security if we are not inspecting people who come in. And so we have to inspect right now, we're just not inspecting people. There's no inspection, and your only choice is to cross illegally, which makes us not realize who's coming into our country. Then we also need to purge the management of the United States Border Patrol. We need to have accountability. We need to open up about the secret cover up teams. We need to pull the money from these agencies and make them go back down to what we need to do as far as people coming to our country, whether it's to visit or to live or to seek another life or whatever. We need to demand this of our representatives and demand that they stick to it. Um, a big thing would be somehow to address the propaganda that is coming out. You cannot allow these agencies to participate in propaganda. I do not think these agencies should have social media accounts at
No,
all. There's
no.
no reason for government agencies to have social media accounts.
The
They
whole
should be
purpose of a
putting their stuff out through their websites and saying, "This is our official proposal, this is our stance, and this and that."
the whole purpose of these government personnel is to be nonpartisan so that they can withstand any party or any person that comes in there. That was the whole purpose of having people, be government employees and not necessarily affiliated with a particular party publicly, right?
Mhm,
So that
mhm,
they're propagating all of these lies that are going out.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of things we can do. I've never gotten to the point where I think that I've said in my book that was published over 3 years ago that when I got to the end, I was like, "How could I have gone through all of this and know all of this and then sit there and go, but it can be reformed?" The Border Patrol is proven itself to be so corrupt. It's proven that it will put itself behind a fascist candidate that is a corrupt candidate, that is apparently a pedophile candidate,
Mhm.
while they sit around and point their fingers at everybody else when their agents are just as corrupt. So we need to deal with the United States Border Patrol. I'm not sure if that means purging it. I don't think it can be reformed. I call for it to be abolished in my book. But at the same time, I also have seen the stuff that does come across the border. I think border enforcement needs to be strictly limited. I think the checkpoints down here that stops everybody just because 'cause they're going to the grocery store because you happen to have to use interstate aid or this place or that place. I think that's a violation of people's rights. I don't care if you need to catch undocumented people. You shouldn't your whole point is that you're catching criminals, so catch the criminals and leave the undocumented people to go into CBP so that they
Okay,
can legally enter.
fun fact. Well, not really fun, but it is a fact. Um, I have my stepdaughter and many other people that I know live in larger cities. My stepdaughter lives in Chicago, right? And so she shared with me, it's a running joke, and she is a young adult. It's a running joke among them about ICE not going into the neighborhoods where the real criminals, the hard criminals are, because they don't want to mess with those people. Let's think for a minute about who we always see. Who are the people that are being terrorized by them? They are usually smaller, Hispanic, looking men or women,
And
right?
children.
And children, teenagers, teenage youth, or a smaller. I have yet to see anybody that's some big burly guy that any of them is messing with, or some badass criminal. I have yet, and I know they exist somewhere out there, but we're they're not going into those neighborhoods. It's a running joke. They all know it. They say that they're not going to show up there because they'll get shot. That's what I've heard many people say. Do you think that's true or that's
I think
accurate?
that's absolutely true. They are absolutely weak. When I joined the United States Border Patrol, I mean, the physical standards were extremely high, and the women had to do the same times as the men did. And right after I graduated the academy, they started extending the times and stuff to now to the point where you can literally almost walk the mile and a half in the border patrol. So you see agents coming out of the academy and they're all fat and out of shape and stuff, and it's like, obviously you're not as tough as you seem to think you are and this and that. And that's what we see. They shot Miramar Martinez. They shot and killed a father in Chicago after he dropped his kids off from school. He was a small Latino man you know, um, uh, and then also Miss Good. That's what you see. Have you seen that video? It's in Minneapolis where Chief Bovino is using the
Okay.
restroom.
I did really sorry. I just want to before I forget. Someone said they are weak, but they were in neighborhoods in Chicago that had gangs. They have been shown a lot. Okay. So if that's happening, we can only go by what we know. So I want to say that someone said they were shown in some of the bad neighborhoods. So I just wanted to point that out. Sorry.
Okay. And so when they do that, they go with a huge amount of force, but typically what we've seen, I mean, in Chicago stats, when they did the first Chicago raids, they arrested, I think they said 2,000 people, and they said about 1% were actually criminals.
Yes.
So this is the standard. This is what happens down here on the southern border with our arrest over the years of people crossing illegally, immigrants crossing illegally. It's always about 1% is the percent that you catch that have prior records and are criminals. And what the Border Patrol and CBP did to make it look like more criminals were crossing is they started adding these lower ranked charges and saying, "Oh, these are included too." I'm sorry, but I don't believe that parking tickets should amounts to a criminal migrant. I
Yeah.
also don't believe that a prior crossing to seek asylum or to seek work through a line in the sand. And I know a lot of you seem to think that, oh, American sovereignty and this and that. Well, I think we've kind of blown that out of the water with Venezuela, haven't we?
Yeah.
We don't give a shit about anybody else's sovereignty. So
No.
I don't know why you give a shit about our sovereignty.
Yeah.
So I mean, so they're having administrative immigration charges. They're counting as criminal aliens is the term for it. And so they've had to do it to try and make it look like more criminals are coming across, and it's just not true. The average is about 1%, no more than maybe on a bad year like 1.5%, which is less than the percentage of border patrol agents committing violent crimes.
And for those individuals who are focused on the um, financial or budgetary items, that are saying that we want to be fiscally conservative. So if we actually want to be fiscally conservative, I think it's important to mention that some of the statistics and that I've seen say that for if there's a path that is actually created, right, that it's actually quite effective to have those individuals who are seeking to become a citizen or obtain their green card or whatever it is that they're doing to actually just work with an individual. I don't know what the role of that person is called, probably more like a social worker or some of those people, because they're showing up. They're coming, they go to their court appointments, they get their paperwork, They get all the things that they need to do. That's how they were arresting all these people to begin with, right? Who have
Mhm.
not actually committed crimes. They were going to get all of their paperwork and go. So, it's
Doing
not
it the right way.
doing it the right way. But what I did see is the cost of that compared to what it is. So per day for those people, it's like $3, not even $3 per day, okay? Compared to what they're paying to cage someone and hold them indefinitely in a detention, it's like $190 at least minimally a day. And this is according to what I saw on the DHS website. I've written about it. I'm sure Jen has it places. You can find this. You can look yourself. So it's proven already that just having them at an address with a phone number and giving them a proper pathway is effective. Is that correct, Jen?
It is effective, and the majority of, something that a lot of people don't know is that you're not entitled to an attorney in immigration law. You can provide your own attorney, but the government's not required to give you one, and that's because it's considered to be civil law and not criminal law. And when immigrants do get attorneys, their success rate as far until now, their success rate for, winning their asylum cases increased dramatically. I don't know what the numbers are on it, so I don't wanna say, but, a large part of it is like, they allow these anti-immigrant hate groups to go and testify, and they bring false information, the stuff that Holman and Rodney Scott, they testify before Congress, and they're giving data that comes from these groups, these anti-immigrant hate groups, and it's just wrong. In fact, Homan sits there all the time and says, "They don't ever show up for their asylum hearings."
That's
Oh,
not
like
true. They're pulling them off.
90% of them do or
They
more,
do. They're pulling them off the court steps. And
Yeah, they do, and so they just lie and nobody holds them accountable. There's just I keep meaning to write something about accountability. I mean, this is
yes.
the number one problem in this country,
I've been
accountability.
screaming about it. I agree. If we
Yeah,
don't have accountability and Homan, by the way, incidentally, do you recall hearing, gosh, it was probably back in maybe February, Marchish, um, springish, something like that, where they actually in his hometown in
yeah,
upstate New York, how they how ICE came in and stole away, kidnapped a mom and her 3 kids. They had a child who was 8 or 9 years old, threw them in a van with a sex offender, okay,
mhm,
that they had found on some they had lived at a farm, right?
mm,
And, carried them off. Well, that town lost it. And
yep,
they protested in front of Homan's house. They were furious. The principal, everybody in the town was like, "You bring that family back. They're a part of our community. We want them back." And you know what?
they got
And
him back.
this is part of their process, right? They instead of they're in upstate New York. Somehow those people ended up in a detention facility all the way in Texas because this is how you launder accountability. Is that correct, Jen? What I'm saying
Yeah,
about laundering?
they move them far away from their families so that they can't get support and they can't get legal counsel.
Yep, from your families, from your friends, nobody knows where you are. But because people raised such a stink about it, they were able to identify where they were. They actually ended up getting brought back home because I remember him saying or being quoted as, "This is my community. Like, this is where I was hoping to live and retire." Well, guess what, dude? Your community doesn't want you if this is the kind of stuff you're going to represent. So these are ways that we can put peaceful pressure in different situations depending on where we live and leverage situations because Tom Homan himself, the border czar, could not stand up against his own small little upstate community who had said, "Hell no, we're not accepting this. You bring that family back." And guess what? That family got brought back. And the
Which
thing
shows you it's not about national security now, is it?
exactly,
Yeah, and
exactly.
Tom Homan, I heard not too long after that, and then recently again, he's like, "I haven't seen my wife in so long, and this isn't fair, and blah blah blah." And I'm like, "Oh, boo-hoo, Tom Home, man."
Yeah, right.
Maybe they should take your children and take them into unaccompanied shelters and stuff, and have your children, if you even have children, have them sexually assaulted. And then when you try and do something about it, we're just going to ignore you. Or we'll investigate you because you're complaining against it. Boo hoo, Tom Homan. You're such a baby.
Yeah, I can't. It's on
It's a man
the
baby.
hypocrisy that he is a man baby, and the hypocrisy and the cognitive dissonance of these people on on all these platforms talking about family values and how they care. I mean, it's all a bunch of absolute crap. I'm sorry, it's unbelievable what they're doing, and we are the ones that have to hold them accountable, so let's continue uplifting. I really would, recommend as much as the hypocrisy is staggering. It absolutely is, but this is our way of be and speaking of, I would just like to say, honestly, what if you find out about do some research. Just written about this and published this today. If you care about the surveillance aspect of what they're doing, you will be flabbergasted if you understand all of these people from the right who were like, "Yeah, we don't want Big Brother all up in our business. Like, we don't want that." Well, guess what, friends? They have contracts with people that are selling commercial data. They don't have to get a warrant for it because they're selling commercial data that already exists through phone apps and all that other stuff, and they're tracking you. They're
Yep.
tracking all of us. And if you're wondering why it seems so random that they're showing up in these, why do they just show up at Target or at Home Depot? Because they're actually doing this geofencing and showing
Mm.
up. Am I wrong about that, Jen?
No, you're not wrong about that. I will say I don't know a ton about that because I'm Gen X, and I was obviously before I was old patrol, and we didn't use as much technology. But basically, yes, this is why you see ICE agents always with their phones going like this. They have
Yeah.
facial recognition apps on their phone that
Yes.
can, in real time, figure out who you are and all that
And
stuff.
here's the thing that they did. These, Penlink is one of them. There was just an article that was featured in Wired. So, I have written all about the things. I have the contract in there to Penlink for 2.8 or $2.3 million to them. There's a bunch of other, um, companies that they're utilizing. But the scary thing is they aren't so before, the way that we had it, you'd have, the DMV records, that's kept in this pot, right? Then you'd have something else that's kept in this pot, right? No,
Mhm.
no longer. They have taken all of this different information and consolidated it into one platform.
And
So
see,
they can
before
track.
now, you would have to get a subpoena to get those records, so a
No.
judge would decide.
Yes, correct. And they have a, Supreme Court case where it's documented, and, the, Inspector General of CBP, ICE, I'll send it, I have it. They released a document basically saying that what they've been doing is violating the law.
Yeah,
This came out in 2023, and that's before now.
yeah.
So imagine what we're doing today. And this isn't just about immigrants. So for all those people that are like, oh, I just don't want, that's for those people. It's okay to track those people and know what they're doing. Well, friends, you could be an innocent bystander at Target or Home Depot going to pick up some lumber, and they just descend upon, or your child could be there at school. They just descend upon it. And,
Yeah.
and
And
this
you're maybe
is
brown
and there's
or
where the
lesbian looking like I am or
And there's
whatever.
where the visual comes in, right?
Yep.
That's where with civil rights, before, you're not allowed to just base something on appearance. But now, if they show up at the Target or the wherever, I mean, it doesn't matter what nationality you are. If you happen to have, let browner skin, or for somebody doesn't actually know what somebody that looks Hispanic might look like, they could just say you could be as American as apple
Well,
pie. They'll
they keep arresting Native Americans.
right, which is
There's nobody more American than a Native American.
that right there, is that not a kick in the teeth?
Yeah.
I feel so bad to know that that is happening. Yeah, that thank you for bringing that up. Indigenous people who have been here since the beginning, since the very beginning, they're grabbing because they're at a store and they look to them to fall within a certain, because they're not looking. If you're wondering, why are they just grabbing people? Why aren't they actually having somebody show them their paperwork? Why aren't they taking the time to do that? Because they're going to ask questions later. They're going to disappear you, throw you in a car, hold you for however many hours, right?
Which is not normal. I
Right.
mean, when I was on the side of a mountain out here, uh, you ask everybody, everybody crossed illegally, everybody's from Mexico or where you determine citizenship right then and there. It's just a question, what country are you a citizen of? It's up to me as an agent to determine if you're lying or if you're truthful. It's done right then and there. The reason why they're putting them in cars and then driving them away is just it's violence against people of color, quite frankly, is what it is.
Absolutely.
And it also violates there's I'm not an attorney, but uh, there's finesse and wiggle room with are you technically being arrested or detained and this and that. But when they put handcuffs on you and put you in a car and then drive you miles away, that really crosses the line right then and there. But yet I don't see anybody filing court cases against this. So
And that is the part about, again, back to our lawmakers, back to their people that are not serving their constituents. This is why we have to make a lot of noise constantly. I call my reps every day. They don't care that I'm calling. Two of them don't, our senators don't even have people answering the phones. The
yeah.
two senators that we have in our state, Bernie Moreno and Husted, they don't actually even answer the phone. They haven't had anybody answer the phone for God knows how long. The rep actually does have someone, but call every day, send emails, put the
Okay,
pressure.
so let's close this out. This is what I want people to do. One, I want you to contact your representatives, state and local and federal, and demand all contracts and funding of ICE, CBP, and Border Patrol stop until this lawlessness stops. Uh, and maybe even longer, but we'll just stick with that. Two, I want you to call them and demand accountability for Miss Good
Yes,
shooting.
yes,
Three, and I'm only going to give you three.
I
I
love this.
want you to demand that your representatives come out against this and publicly state that ICBP and Border Patrol are violating the Constitution. They are committing
I'm even writing it
crimes
down. Yeah.
and being unaccountable and not being held to account. And that you promise your constituents to keep talking about this and do everything that you can to fight this, and that you will talk about this every day. Okay? Just those
Please,
three.
please repeat the first was contracts and funding will stop
Yeah,
until
well,
the
at least stop until the lawlessness and the unaccountability
yes,
stops.
we will print this and put it on Substack to use and share. The
Okay,
3
yeah.
points. Yeah. Yes.
I
Absolutely.
want to encourage people to subscribe to Lisa Gonzalez's
Well, thank you.
Substack. She does
Thank
excellent work. Always been amazed.
thank you.
I like I said, I discovered you. No, I didn't discover you. But when I saw your account, I was like, wow, this woman really knows what she's talking about and
Thank you.
and
This
just your
woman's just
background.
mad.
And quite honestly, you're getting to the point where you can talk about this immigration stuff yourself quite well and make these arguments, Lisa. So
Well, you are a great teacher, and every day that I read something that you put out or that's something that you uplift, my mind is repeatedly blown because I thought I had done I'm just always blown away at the lawlessness, the absolute and complete and utter lawlessness. And this is a time that we have to just continue to be loud. And I love your 3 points because those 3 points, those 3 things are something each of us can do. That's not hard. That
Well,
is
you
not
wrote
hard.
them down. I'm very forgetful. I'm gonna keep my I gotta
I
take
did
these
write them
dogs
down.
for you know what, a WALK, or they're gonna kill me, so I
Okay,
gotta
yeah,
do
you
that.
better go. So,
But, thank you very much for joining me today,
of
and,
course.
we gotta start doing this on a weekly basis.
Yeah, thank
Talk
you,
about that.
everybody. It was so good to be here. Thank you, Jen. I could talk to you forever. You're so knowledgeable, and thank you for your courage and your bravery and continuing to speak out. Get Jen out there as much as we can. Continue to recommend her to people like Midas and
Mm,
Jim Acosta and everyone else because more people need to hear what she has to say. We're
I
not
literally will go on anybody just to get the word out, almost anybody just to get the word out, but
Yeah, we want
yeah.
that. So thank you. I appreciate you, Jen. I
Right.
hope
I
your
appreciate you
dogs
too.
enjoy the WALK.
Okay. Thank you, Lisa.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.